it is some of these hardships that some of you have talked about that we're all hoping that the finance minister and his management of the economy will reduce for all of us after he was sworn in yesterday. But of course, not everybody is very excited about his approval. We've spoken about that story. I'll be soon bringing you the minority leader's position on this. We'll hear from him shortly. But let's listen to Member of Parliament for Bolga Central, Isaac Adongo, who insists that Ken Ofori Atta epitomizes all that is wrong with the country's economy and shouldn't have been given the approval by consensus. He is described as disappointing. The explanation also provided by the leadership of the NDC that Mr. Ofori Atta was approved before because he has messed up the economy.
Across the world, nobody discusses rate of debt accumulation. And it is important because we have one of the most renowned economists who is fixated on an archaic analysis of rate of debt accumulation. And I'll tell you why it is not relevant globally. If I inherit a debt portfolio of 9.2 billion Ghana cedis, and I double that portfolio to, say, 20 billion, but I am able to use just 10% of my my tax revenue to service that and leave about 90% for development. But somebody says that he's doing a rate of debt accumulation of 50%. But that person is using 65% of his tax revenue to finance the interest cost, leaving only 35% for development. You now see why nobody is interested in rate of debt accumulation. Because 100% of 9 billion is peanut compared to 50% of 300 billion. Okay? So Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia should understand that globally we have moved on. We are now looking at the fiscal risk and the level of external vulnerability that our public debt impacts on the country. And the fiscal risk is what I've just explained. When 65% of your fiscal resources are dedicated to payment of interest, that level of risk retards growth and development and makes your debt portfolio unsustainable. Whilst the one that takes only 10% of your tax revenue, no matter the rate at which it was accumulated, is more sustainable and provide the appropriate fiscal space to fund development and growth. I don't know where some of them learned these economists. When they came, you recall that the conversation was around primary balance. And that they said that our primary balance was negative, even though they were later exposed when they reported to IMF. I did not want to be seen as endorsing somebody that I believe is a scam on Ghana. Ken Ofori Atta epitomizes all that is wrong with our financial and the economic sector of Ghana. And I'm the last person to endorse such a move. And that is why I wanted the records to show that I'm absent. So I did not even go there to sign. If there's anybody who will put his life on the line to get Ken Ofori Atta not to be a minister for finance, you can wake me up any day. But it's a collective decision. I disagree with the decision, but I respect the view.
Isaac Adongo is a Bolga Central Member of Parliament. Let's hear from his leader in Parliament, the Minority Leader, Haruna Idrisu.
The NDC General Secretary into the Parliamentary Service Board, true?
Oh, absolutely not. The discussion for the determination of members of the Parliamentary Service Board long ensued even before Ken was nominated as Minister Designate for Finance. I had a discussion with the Speaker a day after his election, and it was my view that he allows the two leaders to nominate one person to the board. The Honorable Osei Mensah brought in Honorable Abraham Osei Edu. Then I also said Honorable Asedu Nketia, because they are all former members of Parliament. It has practically nothing, just the usual viciousness, malicious, despicable lies to tie the two together. This was 2 days after Honorable Alban Bagbin was elected, were in a discussion as to the composition of the board. What held it on was for me and the Honorable Ofori Atta to discuss further about what all of you have missed. How do we get a woman onto the board? That was our concern. What held it up was about whether all of us were bringing in male. So there is no relationship. The Honorable Asedun Ketia is as qualified as any Ghanaian to serve on that board. The Honorable Hakma Uswajiman chaired the MPP Council of Elders, and he was on the Parliamentary Service Board in the 7th Parliament. What we should pray is for them to bring their expertise to build a responsible, accountable parliament and not allow partisan excesses into the work and operation of parliament. I trust he would be able to do that. And then I should say that the Honorable Ofori Atta expressed concern that Haruna Asedu is General Secretary of a political party. So I tapped him and said, leader, but Hackman too was chairman of your Council of Elders, and we laughed over it. So there's no relationship. It's just the delay in announcing it. If you want, check from the Secretariat. The memo for it was prepared. Even if you go back to the other paper, you will recall that long ago it was advertised. So we needed to discuss the manner of the advice. So I again discussed with the Honorable Majority Leader and Leader of Government Business that can't we do it as we did when the President wrote to us on the Council of State? The two of us should concur, have a definite position, and concur that to the Speaker. So it is not true that Honorable Asedun Ketia has anything to do with the approval of Ken Ofori Atta. At the appropriate time, many of you, you know me. Have you ever seen me retract my words publicly? Hardly. You know why? There is a hadith of the Prophet I have always used to guide me. I don't comment on doubtful matters. I comment on what I know. You know, the hadith of the Prophet said that the forbidden is known, the unforbidden is known. Between them are doubtful matters. Avoid doubtful matters. You see, you are questioning me about doubtful matters. I'm keeping away from them because they are doubtful matters. But time and truth. You've heard my famous quote, God cannot be for and against the same matter at the same time. God has choices, and God makes choices. Time will make choices. As for undermine, I have survived it. I will survive it. But it's only natural. I hear people getting worried about whether Haruna wants to run for high office or not. Some of you have even decided to go and produce a 3-piece suit for me. I've never worn a 3-piece suit in my life. Neither have I owned that particular grain tie. So that's
a minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, there responding to some of the concerns that have come on the back of this. Well, you have heard people say that the minister has been sworn into office. Let's move on with our lives as a nation, as Parker said. The Member of Parliament for South Dine, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekpo, has been casting doubts on the ability of the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori Atta, to deliver on the job on health grounds. He says that Mr. Ofori Atta has been actually incompetent, in his view, in the first 4 years. Mr. Dafiamekpo was speaking on the AM show early today.
A decision was made by the committee, including the committee of members of the NDC. The other members. So eventually we have had to, including the committee of members of the NDC. And so it became a bit difficult for the other members of the caucus as a whole to do otherwise.
Okay.
And so eventually we have had to agree that those of us who were opposed to his appointment, we could go by a voice vote. We shouted as loudly as we could.
Voice votes are, usually very difficult to. It's mainly at the discretion of the speaker.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you, and but that was what happened. Those of us who disagreed said so by viva voce. We were hoping that we could have gone through balloting. because the rules are very clear. Either a voice vote through consensus, that the ayes have it loudly and there will be no opposition as to no or the nays. So even though the nays, those of us who said nay, we lost, nobody called for a division. And so
why would you, I mean, you may have your issues, but as Mr. here says, here is a competent Ghanaian who has proven, who has shown you, track record of what he is capable of when it comes to, the finance sector. You may have your issues with him, but is he not competent enough to do the work?
He hasn't demonstrated that in public service.
At the vetting or in public service?
In public service. For the past 4 years, he's not demonstrated his competence.
But they've given us figures to show how well he has done. What
sort of figures? The man came to meet CD as 4.2. Today's CD is 5.9 to the dollar. Is that competence?
What's the rate of depreciation?
The rate.
Please. So you agree that there's a depreciation. But his promise was that he was coming to stabilize the city. There will be no depreciation at all. If somebody says, I'm coming to stabilize, that is no depreciation. Did he do that? For me, his health was even an issue for some of us. That yes, he must have served as finance minister for the past 4 years. But going forward, he doesn't look in the best frame of physique to be able to bear the brunt of such onerous tax such as the office of the finance minister.
Nelson Dafiamepo there. Well, on the same show was the Member of Parliament for Second D, Andrew Ejapa Mesa. He disagrees.
The very competent Ghanaian, Honorable Ofori Atta, during the vetting process, I wasn't surprised, and many Ghanaians were satisfied with the responses that he provided relative to the issues that had come up. When we were in the crisis, when the pandemic was here, he provided significant relief.
The pandemic is still here.
Look, the extent of what it is that we know today, as opposed to what we knew about COVID-19 a year ago, is completely different. This was a novel virus that nobody knew its character, that had disrupted the entire global economy. The entire global value chain had been disrupted by COVID-19.
But I'm here to hear any country impose new taxes in these times.
Botswana has.
Educate me.
Yesterday,
Botswana?
During the debate, yes.
How many the people in Botswana?
They have increased their value added tax by 2%.
Ghana is way the number of people Ghanaians we have are so many. Way beyond the people in Botswana.
Let's face facts. The situation that we find ourselves in today requires government to expend resources to protect everybody.
Yeah.
2 options are available: debt or raise revenue.